You are not trapped in your old identity. You are allowed to become someone completely new, and the shift begins when you stop looking backward. Take a slow breath. Let your body become still. Release the tension in your shoulders. Soften your face. Unclench your hands. Allow your breathing to become calm. For the next few moments, you do not need to perform. You do not need to prove anything. You do not need to defend who you have been. You are here to release an identity that no longer belongs to you. An identity built from old experiences, old fears, old disappointments, old expectations, and old ways of seeing yourself. You may have carried this identity for years. You may have repeated its story every day. You may have believed it was simply who you were. But repetition does not make an identity permanent. Familiarity does not make it true. The person you learn to be is not the limit of who you can become. Take another slow breath. Let that truth settle into your mind. You are not required to remain loyal to an outdated version of yourself. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to respond differently. You are allowed to want more. You are allowed to expect more from yourself. You are allowed to become unfamiliar to your past. The old identity may have protected you once. It may have helped you survive uncertainty. It may have taught you how to stay alert, how to avoid rejection, how to prepare for disappointment, how to remain small enough to feel safe. But survival is not your permanent identity. Fear is not your personality. Overthinking is not your destiny. Self-doubt is not your natural state. You learned these patterns, and what was learned can be released. What was repeated can be replaced. What became automatic can become conscious again. Breathe slowly. Notice what happens inside you when you imagine becoming someone new. Part of you may feel excited. Part of you may feel uncertain. Part of you may wonder whether change is truly possible. That uncertainty is normal. The mind prefers what it recognizes, even when what it recognizes is painful. The familiar can feel safer than the unknown, but the unknown is not always dangerous. Sometimes the unknown is simply the life you have not experienced yet. A calmer life, a more confident life, a life where you trust yourself, a life where you stop chasing validation, a life where you no longer abandon yourself to keep others close, a life where your choices come from self-respect. That life begins with identity. Because your identity shapes what you notice. It shapes what you tolerate. It shapes what you expect. It shapes how you speak to yourself. It shapes the decisions you make when nobody is watching. And it shapes what feels possible for you. When you believe you are powerless, you wait. When you believe you are unworthy, you accept less. When you believe you are always rejected, you search for rejection everywhere. When you believe you must chase, stillness feels threatening. When you believe good things never stay, you prepare for loss before anything has ended. These beliefs can become an invisible identity, and that identity can quietly control your life. But it is not the truth of you. It is a collection of patterns, a collection of interpretations, a collection of emotional memories. And today, you can begin releasing them. Take a deeper breath. Say quietly inside your mind, I release the identity created by my past. I release the version of me built around fear. I release the belief that I must remain who I was. I release the need to repeat familiar pain. I release every label that makes me smaller. Let these words move through you. You do not need to force them. You do not need to feel immediate certainty. Simply allow a new possibility to enter. The possibility that you are changing now. The possibility that your old reactions are losing their power. The possibility that your future does not need to resemble your past. The possibility that the person you are becoming already exists within your choices. Every new identity begins quietly. It begins when you pause before repeating an old reaction. It begins when you stop explaining yourself to someone committed to misunderstanding you. It begins when you keep a promise to yourself. It begins when you choose rest instead of punishment. It begins when you walk away from what keeps reducing your worth. It begins when you speak to yourself with respect. It begins when you stop asking the past for permission to move forward. These moments may look small, but identity is built through small evidence. Every choice sends your mind a message. Every boundary sends your mind a message. Every action sends your mind a message. Every time you choose yourself, your identity listens. Every time you respond differently, your identity changes. Every time you refuse the old pattern, a new pattern becomes available. You do not become someone new through one dramatic moment. You become someone new through repeated inner decisions. Calm decisions, clear decisions, honest decisions, decisions that match where you are going, not where you have been. Take a slow breath. Imagine the old version of you standing behind you. See that version clearly. Perhaps they are tired. Perhaps they are always waiting for reassurance. Perhaps they are watching everyone else for signs of approval. Perhaps they are afraid to be forgotten, afraid to be replaced, afraid to fail, afraid to begin again. Do not judge this version of yourself. They were doing what they knew. They were using the tools they had. They were trying to protect you, but they do not need to lead your life anymore. You can appreciate what they carried. You can understand why they existed, and you can still choose to move beyond them. Say inside your mind, "You helped me reach this moment, but I am ready to lead myself now. I no longer need fear to guide me. I no longer need pain to define me. I no longer need the past to predict my future. I am ready to become someone new." Feel the distance beginning to form. Not distance from yourself, distance from the pattern distance from the old story, distance from the automatic belief that nothing can change. You are not rejecting yourself. You are releasing what covered your real strength. You are releasing the identity that kept asking for permission, the identity that kept waiting to be selected, the identity that believed another person held the key to your worth, the identity that confused attention with value, the identity that confused anxiety with connection, the identity that confused struggle with importance. You are releasing all of it now, one breath at a time, one belief at a time, one decision at a time. The new version of you does not chase what creates confusion. The new version of you notices how things feel. The new version of you respects their own energy. The new version of you does not beg for consistency. The new version of you becomes consistent with themselves. The new version of you does not need constant reassurance. They create safety through self-trust. They listen to actions. They recognize patterns. They leave space for clarity. They do not force what resists them. They do not shrink to remain accepted. They do not become louder to be noticed. Their presence speaks before they explain anything. Their standards speak. Their calm speaks. Their choices speak. Their absence speaks when respect is missing. Take another breath. Let your nervous system hear this. You are safe without chasing. You are safe without controlling every outcome. You are safe when you choose yourself. You are safe when you stop repeating the old pattern. You are safe inside your own decision. The old identity may try to return. It may speak through doubt. It may tell you that you are pretending. It may remind you of every previous failure. It may say that change will not last. But an old voice is not a final authority. A thought is not a command. A memory is not a prediction. A feeling is not an identity. You can notice the old voice without obeying it. You can hear it and remain still. You can feel uncertainty and continue forward. You can experience discomfort without returning to what harmed you. That is strength. Strength is not the absence of old feelings. Strength is choosing differently while those feelings pass. You are learning to stay with yourself. You are learning not to disappear when life becomes uncertain. You are learning not to betray your standards for temporary comfort. You are learning that emotional discomfort does not mean you made the wrong choice. Sometimes discomfort means the pattern is losing control. Sometimes emptiness is simply space without the old chaos. Sometimes silence feels strange because your mind was trained to expect noise. Sometimes peace feels unfamiliar before it feels safe. Let peace become familiar. Let clarity become familiar. Let self-respect become familiar. Let consistency become familiar. Let receiving become familiar. Let your stronger identity become normal. You do not need to earn this identity. You create it through embodiment. You think from it. You choose from it. You speak from it. You move through the world from it. Ask yourself quietly, how would I breathe if I trusted myself? How would I walk if I knew my worth? How would I respond if I no longer feared rejection? What would I stop tolerating? What would I begin creating? What would I choose today? You do not need every answer. Let your body answer first. Let your posture change. Let your breathing deepen. Let your shoulders relax. Let your face soften. A secure identity does not rush. It does not panic over every delay. It does not interpret silence as proof of worthlessness. It does not turn uncertainty into catastrophe. It waits for information. It observes. It chooses carefully. It trusts that what is aligned does not require self-abandonment. You are becoming this version now. A version who pauses. A version who listens inward. A version who knows that being wanted is not enough. You also need to feel respected. You need honesty. You need consistency. You need emotional safety. You need space to remain yourself. The old identity may have accepted fragments. The new identity expects wholeness. The old identity feared losing others. The new identity refuses to lose themselves. The old identity searched for signs. The new identity watches behavior. The old identity waited to feel chosen. The new identity chooses their own life. The old identity asked, "Am I enough?" The new identity asks, "Is this enough for me?" Feel the power in that shift. It is quiet power, grounded power, power that does not need to dominate, power that does not need to prove itself, power that comes from knowing where you stand. You are no longer available for every old cycle. As you continue breathing, hold the number 555 in your awareness. Let it become a symbol of movement, a reminder that change does not need to be feared, a reminder that an old identity can loosen, a reminder that a new direction can begin quietly. You do not need to force the transition. You only need to stop feeding what you have outgrown. Let 555 represent release. Let it represent courage. Let it represent the moment you stopped asking the past who you were allowed to become. Take one final deep breath. Breathe in the identity you are creating. Breathe out the identity you have outgrown. Breathe in self-trust. Breathe out self-doubt. Breathe in clarity. Breathe out confusion. Breathe in calm strength. Breathe out the need to chase. You are no longer trapped in the person you used to be. You are no longer required to repeat the same emotional story. You are no longer carrying every old belief into your future. The release has begun. The shift has begun. Your choices are changing. Your standards are changing. Your relationship with yourself is changing. You are becoming calmer. You are becoming clearer. You are becoming stronger. You are becoming someone who does not leave themselves behind. And from this moment forward, every aligned action strengthens that identity. Every boundary strengthens it. Every promise strengthens it. Every moment of self-respect strengthens it. Your old identity is no longer leading. You are leading now. You are choosing now. You are creating now. And the person you are becoming is ready to take your life somewhere new. If you are ready to deepen this transformation, I created a 31-day manifestation journal to help you strengthen your new identity through daily reflection and intentional practice. The link is in the description. Thank you for being here.